Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on. Today, we step back into time, specifically 1936. We're looking at the Panerai Radiomir 1936 PAM 249, a historic tribute model, stainless steel, 47 millimeters, one of 1,936, surprise, surprise, built for the 2006 Panerai Special Series model year. This watch is a line-for-line, loving tribute to the very first Panerai combat dive watches, really the watches that can be considered the forerunners of all modern luxury sports watches. Now, in the mid-1930s, Panerai was looking to establish a presence in the military timepiece sector. Traditionally, manufacturers of military instruments, depth gauges, underwater compasses, nighttime signaling equipment based on their Radiomir, self-activated glowing luminescent paint, Panerai needed a manufacturing partner to help it produce a full wristwatch with which to supply Italy's new, themselves pioneering, Decima Flotilla amphibious tactical swimmers. So Panerai turned to Rolex, and therein lie a lot of the styling cues featured on this PAM 249. They come from Rolex's engineering and design heritage. Now Panerai specified essentially what it needed from Rolex, and Rolex built the fundamental movement and the case. Panerai then received those watches that were made in Switzerland and modified them in Florence to their military specifications, and that was the genesis of the first Panerai combat dive watch, the 3646, and it's the model that is essentially commemorated by this PAM 249 Radiomir 1936. Now on the wrist you can see 47 millimeters, manual wind, very flat, an outstanding two-way player. This really is a Panerai. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more versatile, a little bit more formal, the PAM 249 is a superb option. Now you can see how flat it sits on the wrist. It nestles gently. It's actually very lightweight, extremely wieldy, but because of the tremendous curvature from that high domed 2mm plexiglass crystal to the edge of the highly contoured bezel and case, just about any sleeve, no matter how tough, no matter how formal, is going to be able to slip up and over this one. An outstanding versatile watch. Again, it's a formal watch, it's an informal watch, it's a remarkably light watch, and it's a remarkably comfortable watch. I would say that just as it can deal with different sartorial scenarios, different types of dress, it's also able to accommodate a broad range of wrists. Now my wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, for those of you in Switzerland and Florence who may be watching. And the watch fits beautifully. This watch could easily fit a smaller wrist than mine, or a much, much larger one. The bottom line is, I've really never experienced a watch that feels like it would look good and feel good on any wrist, but this PAM 249 definitely fits the bill, and I would say this is a unique piece just in the way it wears, never mind the way it looks. But you definitely have to explore the way it looks and unpack it to fully appreciate the PAM 249. Now, the cardinal elements here are the semi-gloss black dial, the gilt chapter ring, here a railroad or sector pattern comprising the minute track, and this simulated radium patina California dial. That is the Roman numerals on the top, the Arabic numerals on the bottom. This is iconic of early to mid-century Rolex, and it really hammers home the relationship between Panerai and Rolex. This was unprecedented in history, and it really has no follow-up. But Panerai was essentially able to take the Rolex product that it ordered and modify it to its heart's delight while still maintaining the Rolex signage on the cases and on the movements. And this California dial with a gilt printing pattern that is a golden style print, also reminiscent of vintage Rolex, pays tribute to that famed relationship and that aesthetic connection between Panerai and Rolex. Also, there's a beautifully blued combination of hour and minute hands with a matching ecru simulated radium patina luminescence, and I really want to go over what that means. Radiomir, as I discussed, was the original product of Panerai for the military, a self-activated luminescent paint. Over time, the radium base would degrade the luminescent or phosphorescent elements, and they would fade to a tan or a brown look that's known as radium patina. Now that's charming, and it's highly sought on vintage watches like surviving Panerai 3646 models. The downside is that today it doesn't really glow anymore because the radium, though still radioactive, has degraded the actual glowing luminescent part. This is rendered in modern superluminova luminant, so it still glows like a torch at night, but you get the warmth and the charm and the character of a vintage patina without the drawback of a watch that's only visible during the day. When you turn this one over, you can see it features, just like the historic 3646, a large manual wind pocket watch movement. Now, back in the day, this would have been a Rolex Codebert caliber 618 pocket watch movement. Today, it's based on the Swatch Group's Unitas 6497, a classic pocket watch that's also used as the school watch for training watchmakers, and for good reason. It's a case study in how traditional watch architecture was laid out, but it's been modernized with several important elements. The power reserve has been upgraded from 42 hours to 56 hours. The regulator has been upgraded from a mobile stick index to a semi-fixed swan's neck arrangement, beautifully finished. It secures that timing index, that little stick on top of the balance, from moving due to shock, and it's also a beautiful anachronism to behold. And then there's the large, slow-beating balance. The slow-beating balance, so emblematic of pocket watch architecture, beautiful to behold. It gives the watch tremendous character. And because this watch has, like I said, modern refinements, there's a degree of finishing that you're unlikely to see on any other 6497. This is a rare opus of a 6497, and it's really a fitting tribute to the old Rolex pocket watch movements. It's a huge 16.5 leans, which equates to just over 37 millimeters. So like a modern movement, it can fill out a vast display caseback and really fill up this huge 47 millimeter Panerai Radiomir case. If you're into history, I have no doubt the Panerai Radiomir 1936 PAM 249 is the watch for you. If you remember the famed first Panerai Special Series Limited Edition, the PAM 21 in platinum of 1997 with the Rolex movement and the soldered-on wire lugs and the sewn-on strap, that was a beautiful piece, but with only 60,000 made, unless you're willing to sell the house, it's probably unobtainable. On the other hand, you can have all of the charm of a vintage Panerai combat watch with the Radiomir 1936 PAM 249 you see here, available from Watch You Want. If you're into history, if you like military history, if you love the look of the Panerai, and you want a watch that can be either formal or informal in turn, this Panerai Radiomir 1936 PAM 249 may be just the watch you want.